Chapter 86 to 89. What exactly happened in Fuyuki City? The captain of the self-defense fleet stood on the deck, gazing at the distant mountains through his binoculars. Since receiving the orders, the captain had been leading his fleet toward Fuyuki City. Intelligence reports indicated that a giant, similar to those of mythological tales, had emerged there. The captain initially believed that the individuals with superhuman abilities in the country were causing chaos, and thus he brought weapons to restore order. Yet he couldn't shake off a sense of unease. As an ordinary naval officer, the captain was aware of the existence of mysterious powers, albeit to a limited extent. He knew that those who possessed these powers were typically high-ranking individuals who wouldn't readily unleash them, such as his superior, Admiral Muto. This pattern was not unique to Japan, but was prevalent in other countries as well. Humans who possess mysterious powers occupy high positions and hold substantial influence, with some non-human entities even infiltrating the upper echelons of some nations and exerting significant control. This is the reality of the world. Nevertheless, his superior had once informed him that even those with mysterious powers tend to avoid using them in public. Most individuals who possess such abilities prefer to live in solitude, devoting themselves to pursuing the mysteries. The captain understood the information but found his superior's words to be cryptic and philosophical in nature. Nevertheless, from what he was told, individuals who possess mysterious powers were unlikely to take drastic actions or make moves that would have a significant impact. However, what was the cause of the current situation? The entire Miyama City district was in ruins, with towering black smoke and a blazing sea of fire visible to the naked eye. The captain was at a loss, unable to comprehend the events unfolding before him. He furrowed his brow, contemplating the giant from the intelligence reports and the black hole in the sky. Just then, a soldier exclaimed, "What in the world is that?" The captain looked up and saw a golden and black light entwined, appearing like a meteor streaking across the night sky. In the next instant, the meteor slammed into the distant ocean. Boom! 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 Oh! A thunderous roar echoed, causing the sea to explode and massive waves to rise. The warship, thousands of miles away, was nearly capsized by the heavy waves. "Enemy attack! Enemy attack!" the captain yelled. "Fire air-to-air missiles! Launch air-to-air missiles!" "Negative, Captain. The opponent's movement speed is too high. We can't get a lock on them," the soldier reported back. "What? What happened to the Air Force? Where did they go?" the captain demanded. "Captain, all fighter jets dispatched to Miyama have lost communication," the soldier reported. "Oh my God! What are they trying to do?" the captain muttered to himself. The soldier was unsure of whom the captain referred to as they, but he didn't dare to inquire further. "Set a course for Fuyuki City immediately and stand by," the captain commanded. "Yes, sir." Two beams of light shot through the night sky, accompanied by loud, explosive sounds. The black mud war machine, powered by 16 small magic propulsion engines that emit intense magical energy with Shirou as its magical furnace, was in hot pursuit of Gilgamesh's Vimana. The Vimana, a sky warship from Indian mythology, was fueled by a solar crystal and burned mercury as fuel. It defied the laws of physics, traveling at speeds faster than thought and outstripping modern jet planes. Equipped with a range of weapons, including ancient nuclear warheads, the Vimana posed a formidable threat. At that moment, the Vimana was engulfed in a golden light, and a barrage of bright, shining, noble phantasms was fired at Shirou. Shh! With a flick of his mind, Shirou's black wings transformed into two massive hands that swept forward, devouring the incoming noble phantasm. The weaker noble phantasms were immediately consumed by the curse, while the stronger ones that broke through the mud defense were blocked by the shield that Shirou had copied from Gilgamesh. At the same time, he also projected countless swords and shot them toward Gilgamesh. In response, Gilgamesh erected numerous shields to block the sword barrage, while also drawing Ea and gathering magical energy. But to his surprise, the delicate shining shields were suddenly swallowed by the mud and crumbled to ashes in the wind. It turned out that these swords were not just projections from Shirou, but also mud swords that cursed and polluted the shields. "I won't give you a chance to release Ea," Shirou declared with determination in his eyes. By exploiting the properties of mud, as long as he kept Gilgamesh suppressed and prevented the release of Ea, he could win. "Tsk!" Gilgamesh growled in anger, forced to temporarily abandon his plans to release Ea. He activated Vimana's weapons system, unleashing magical bullets that rained down like machine gun fire. But Shirou was not afraid, projecting numerous shields while manipulating the black mud to split into countless hands that reached out to grab Vimana. Gilgamesh wielded the controller, directing the magical bullets at Mud's grasping hands to prevent capture. Meanwhile, he opened the ammunition chamber and fired an ancient warhead directly at Shirou. Despite the ancient warhead being only noble phantasm level, not the real deal, Shirou did not dare face it head-on before gauging its power. Instead, he manipulated the black mud to form a massive fist from the war machine platform, using it to strike the warhead towards the distant sea surface. Boom, 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 boom! The impact echoed with a series of booms, causing the waves to become turbulent and the seawater to surge. The force of the blow was enough to send shockwaves through the ocean. Shirou estimated the warhead's power to be around the level of an A-rank noble phantasm's broken phantasm, which was within his acceptable range. When the Vimana once again released the ancient warhead, Shirou quickly acted and shot out a large mass of black mud, wrapping it up. Rumble, rumble, rumble! The sky lit up with dazzling fireworks. The shattered mud transformed into dust and merged back into the evil mud. Gilgamesh furrowed his brow. Such a limited attack against the infinite, a tangible attack against the intangible, was foolish from the start. But he couldn't deny that he was now at a disadvantage. His only option was... He gazed at the sword of rupture in his hand. "Should I unleash Ea?" Gilgamesh fired off dozens of noble phantasms. "It's no use. No matter how many times you do it, it's futile. I am now your natural enemy." The wings once again formed the hands of mud, clutching those noble phantasms. Just as it was about to curse and consume them, rumble, rumble, rumble! The noble phantasms exploded, blasting the mud hand away. "You detonated your noble phantasms?" Shirou was stunned. "Humph! To have forced me to this extent, you scum have reason to be proud," Gilgamesh said contemptuously, before infusing magical energy, ready to unleash Ea. "Don't even think about it!" Shirou yelled, as the mud wings transformed into a machine gun, firing black bullets at Gilgamesh's shield. Shirou waited for the erosion to open and used projection to penetrate it with his sword. However, boom, 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 boom! Gilgamesh detonated the shield, clouding Shirou's vision with smoke. In the next instant, dozens of swords aimed for Shirou. Anticipating this familiar trick, Shirou intended to deflect them with the mud giant hands, but before they could make contact with the noble phantasms, Gilgamesh detonated them. Boom, 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 ah! The continuous explosions, like a beautiful fireworks display, illuminated the dark sky. The detonation of dozens of high-level noble phantasms created a disturbance of magical energy, causing Shirou's black war machine to lose stability. At that moment, the king, who was fixated on acquiring treasures, mercilessly transformed them into bombs and targeted Shirou with them. The sole purpose of this shocking act was to buy time and gain the chance to unleash his Ea. The king's seriousness was beyond doubt. "I can do this as well," Shirou yelled, ready to project a sword. In the distance, amidst the smoke, a crimson light flickered, indicating the accumulation of tremendous magical energy. A massive wind, sharp as a blade, began to rip through the fabric of space. Shirou's eyes narrowed. "Not good! For a mongrel like you to push me to this extent is commendable, but in the end you can only go so far." The king, standing atop the Vimana, wielding the sword of rupture, pointed at Shirou and declared, "Mortar of the stars, split the heavens and the earth." The wind howled as the king unleashed his Aya. The light from the sword of rupture blazed like a scarlet sun, slicing through the air and tearing apart the earth. The wind pressure from the strike became a spatial fracture, crushing Shirou with the force of the sun. Countless mud hands stretched out of their own accord, but they were unable to get close and were instantly crushed into nothingness. It was a force that not even evil could withstand, the original morning star, the power of creation. Faced with this seemingly insurmountable power, Shirou once again felt the sense of oppression he had experienced when he first became aware of it. The feeling of life and death. The feeling of despair seemed to grip his heart. "Don't give in to those thoughts! My flower is not a fleeting show!" Shirou yelled, and used the sword scabbard he obtained from Kiritsugu, which was said to have the greatest defensive power, as a bullet to counter the might of Iya's devastating attack that split the very fabric of heaven and earth. A column of mud rose behind the scabbard, and more mud quickly coalesced into a solid ball, encasing Shirou and shielding him from harm. Boom, 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 boo! The full force of Iya's attack hit the sword scabbard, touted as the strongest defense, without mercy. The mud ball that housed Shirou was mercilessly slammed into the seabed. Splash, 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 splash! The sea boiled and surged upwards like a towering wall. It was all over. The king had emerged victorious. With his formidable power of splitting heaven and earth, he had succeeded in killing the thief that had dared to defy him. Yet, this trial had been a complete failure. The individual chosen to undergo the trial, who had been appointed by the king himself, had fallen to the king's wrath. It was time to put the weapon, Iya, away, however. Suddenly, with a deafening sound that echoed across the entire ocean, a black line shot up from the sea floor, its gleaming blade arcing through the sky like a bridge connecting heaven and earth. As Vimana was engulfed in a single thunderous blast, the king was flung from his warship and careened through the air, crashing onto the rooftop of a towering tower in the Miyama district. His once gleaming golden armor was now shattered and twisted from the sheer force of the impact, a symbol of his defeat and humiliation. The sea was rent asunder by the black sword, its waters parting and forming towering walls that stretched into the distance. From within the divide, a solitary figure emerged, his movements slow and deliberate, as if he were a deity rising from the depths. No, it would be more accurate to say it was a humanoid. The intense heat that had been unleashed had rendered the figure almost unrecognizable, with only his bright eyes shining like fiery embers. He stepped forth from the sea floor, carrying King Arthur's sword sheath. As he progressed forward, a trail of mud gradually appeared beneath his feet, where there was once nothing but emptiness. The dark, slender pathway was infused with the sweet aroma of flower blooms. With each step he took, the black mud enveloped him, absorbing his pain and mending his injuries. Emerging from the sea, Shirou approached the Golden King with slow, deliberate steps. He spoke with a resolute voice. "Your heart has been clouded by wrath. Allow me to clear the path to freedom for you." The Golden King recoiled, his hand within the armor shaking. He glared at Shirou with a menacing expression, yet he had to acknowledge the truth. This monster!" All else vanished from his sight as the figure approached him from the distance, filling the Golden King with a sense of impending rage that threatened to consume everything he had. And in that moment, cha! A sharp, resounding noise echoed as a short knife plunged into Gilgamesh's abdomen through his back. "Hey, hey, hey! Who would have thought, Gilgamesh? My master has long—" The assailant was eager to gloat over the fallen Golden King, whose tragic end had come at his hands. But there was no response. The Golden King didn't even spare the new person a glance, as if he hadn't noticed the wound in his abdomen. Gilgamesh couldn't take his eyes off the figure slowly approaching him from the distant sea, and then, with a swift motion, he swung the sword of rupture in his hand. "Pata!" The sound echoed as the sword instantly crushed the attacking thief behind him. "Thud!" The skull mask clattered against the ground. Gilgamesh's eyes burned with intense fury. His chest wound, still bleeding as black mud flowed from it, gradually covering his entire body. "Who would have thought that there's still mud left?" Shirou raised his eyebrows in surprise as he gazed at the black mud slowly enveloping Gilgamesh. He had thought that all the mud had entered into his body, but he was surprised to see that there was still some left on Gilgamesh. Indeed, this is the evil that Gilgamesh carried when he first encountered all the world's evil, allowing his spiritual form to experience the essence of flesh. The Golden King, who had just been attacked and fatally wounded with a stab to the abdomen by the last assassin, frowned as the evil he had been carrying began to spill out. The evil mud surged and rolled, as if it were attempting to return to its source, and was threatening to overflow from the Golden King to Shirou. However, the Gilgamesh grabbed the evil and pushed it onto himself. His eyes, blazing with anger, locked onto Shirou as he approached. In that moment, the black mud engulfed the Golden King and transformed him into a massive mud giant, akin to the ultimate form of Spartacus. No, it cannot be referred to as the mud giant. It should be referred to as the stone giant. The black mud has been consumed by Gilgamesh's wrath, leaving only the stone behind. "Ah! Ah!" The stone giant bellowed with fury, brandishing a massive hammer and directing its wrath towards Shirou. The surge of magical energy and the sheer force of its roar caused the surrounding seawater to rush in, flooding the area. "Did the flames of your anger really dry up the black mud?" Shirou asked, his voice tinged with a hint of disappointment. "This is the act of a weakling," he added with a sad smile. Sensing a gaze upon him, Shirou turned his head and saw Kirei, who was hiding and watching from the shadows. Shirou offered a small smile before the mud rushed in and swallowed Shirou, forming another mud giant that towered over 40 meters tall. Shirou was located within the head of the mud giant, with fine black lines of mud extending from his body, connecting every part of the giant as if they were nerves. At that moment, the mud giant became his physical form, and Shirou became its mind, controlling the giant as he emerged from the seawater and took his first steps on solid ground. "Ah!" the stone giant bellowed as he struck out with a massive hammer, connecting with the mud giant that was being controlled by Shirou. Thump! A heavy thud resounded as Shirou was sent reeling backward, the impact causing him to take a step back. The giant's massive foot hit the water, sending a large wave rippling outward. Wah! At Shirou's command, the mud giant unleashed a fierce roar and snagged the stone giant's wrist with one hand. With the other hand, it formed a tight fist and delivered a powerful blow to the stone giant's gut. Thump! The stone giant was sent staggering several steps back, and Shirou seized the chance to emerge from the water onto dry land. Ah! Wah! The behemoths launched into battle, exchanging massive blows with each strike. What is that? What's that thing? Kirei gazed at the scene with a blank expression. He had used assassin to betray and attack Gilgamesh, eager to witness the latter's angry and destructive reaction. But his expectations were not met. He couldn't enjoy anything. Gilgamesh didn't even spare Kirei or assassin a glance, his gaze instead fixed intently on the figure in the sea. The anger on his face was not the ugliness that Kirei had anticipated, but a solemn, shivering rage. However, this anger was not directed at Kirei, who had betrayed and assassinated him. Why is Gilgamesh so fixated on that person? Kirei couldn't understand it, but as he looked at the figure, he was struck by a deeper sense of confusion. What lies in those eyes? Kirei didn't know, but he knew one thing for certain. He had to get out of there. The stone giant of the king and the mud giant of the mysterious figure had engaged in combat. These two behemoths, towering over 40 meters tall, were battling on the land, creating a scene that was reminiscent of a mythological conflict. Kirei was at a loss as to why the counterforce had not yet sent out counter-guardians to intervene. But he didn't want to dwell on the matter. His mind was consumed by thoughts of those captivating eyes, those eyes that had drawn him in completely. Oh my God! What are those? Monsters? The people of the village, who were gathered on the shore, gazed in wonder at the two massive figures battling on the land. Their first thought was of the Ultraman shows they watched with their children during leisure time. Could these be the monsters from those shows? They were both terrifying and vicious, with massive bodies and broad shoulders. Every move they made was catastrophic. Captain, should we attack? A soldier stammered fearfully. All of the soldiers on the warship were low in morale, as they were faced with a daunting task. They were used to the struggles of war between people, but what they saw before them now felt like a battle between people and demons. The situation had left them feeling uneasy and uncertain. Attack! The captain stammered and then repeated the command firmly. Attack! A barrage of missiles was fired toward the two massive creatures, accompanied by an attack from the American military stationed near Okinawa. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! The sound of several aircraft filled the sky as they flew by, joining the attack against the giants. Boom, 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 boom! The two behemoths produced a stunning display of fireworks, but it was to no avail. They paid no heed to the missile's explosion, their focus solely on each other. The stone giant landed a punch on the mud giant, causing its massive form to crash onto the Fuyuki Bridge. Kacha, 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 kacha. The force of the fall caused the Fuyuki City Bridge to collapse. The stone giant held the Sword of Rupture high, preparing to unleash a fearsome burst of magical energy. However, before it could act, the mud giant shot a black blade that cleanly severed the stone giant's arm. The massive stone arm, along with the brewing magical energy, soared high into the sky. Ah! Ah! The stone giant clutched its severed arm as golden light emitted from its body, accompanied by countless noble phantasms shooting towards the mud giant. The massive body of the mud giant extended countless black hands, like a demon from the depths of the abyss, pulling all the noble phantasms into its mud swamp. The crowd who witnessed the scene were struck with fear and terror, their faces pale and hearts pounding. Their attacks were proving to be useless against these giants of fear and despair. Shirou cut off a chunk of the black mud as it rolled across the ground, like pus, enveloping the forgotten Sword of Rupture before disappearing into the sea and hiding in the mud. The stone giant held its severed arm and let out a roar. Stones are hard and brittle. Once shattered, they cannot be repaired. Mud, on the other hand, is malleable and can be mended, Shirou spoke, controlling the mud giant as it stood up from the sea, propping itself up with one hand. The stone giant then took out countless noble phantasms and bombarded Shirou. It then retrieved the giant sword that had previously suppressed Spartacus from the Gate of Babylon, using only its one arm. Its name was Ig Alima, the green field cutting through the 1,000 mountains. With Ig Alima in hand, even 1,000 mountains could be cut and leveled. It was a massive, divine sword of great length. Shirou directly replicated the sword, holding one in each hand. And as the stone giant attack came hurtling towards him, he countered with a fierce strike of his own. Clang! The three giant swords clashed, and the sound of steel ringing echoes across the battlefield. The force of the impact was enough to stir the black fog that blanketed the sky, and those who bore witness to this moment were left in awe. In fact, even the people of Shinto were left with their mouths agape at the scene. How could something like this be forgotten? The two replicated swords were broken by the real sword, but its powerful force still caused the stone giant's one arm to sway. Shirou seized the opportunity and projected another giant sword, moving it swiftly through the air with a whoosh. It sliced through the air, leaving a trail of cold light. He severed the left leg of the stone giant, causing it to topple unsteadily. Stone may be strong and hard, but once shattered, it cannot be restored. However, mud is soft and forgiving, so it cannot be destroyed. He overpowered the stone giant and said, "I regret to say that I can only accompany you this far. If you continue to cause trouble, it will not end well for you." Shirou shattered the chest of the stone giant and plunged his slender black hand inside, clasping its beating heart and squeezing it. Thump! The stone giant perished. Its massive stone exterior crumbled and fell away, reduced to nothing more than rubble and dust. The remnants of the giant's once formidable form slowly drifted back towards Shirou, drawn back to him like a wandering spirit returning to its source. Gilgamesh leaned against a withered tree, surrounded by the ruins of crumbling walls and decaying buildings, with fire consuming all in sight. At this moment, he was in a pitiful state. His arms severed, legs torn apart, and heart hollow, all flowing with blood. His complexion was pallid, and his body was beginning to fade away like snowflakes. His vision was clouded, yet he pushed on, squinting into the distance. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the fiery sea and approached him. The figure was young and sturdy, striding forward with determination. "You've won," Gilgamesh said. "I haven't won and you haven't lost." Shirou crouched down and gazed into Gilgamesh's eyes. Gilgamesh sneered, "Humph. What's the point of a mongrel like you learning to speak like those who have discovered the truth of the world?" "I haven't learned from anyone," Shirou said. "I simply speak the truth. My victory over you is not about defeating you, but about getting closer to understanding you." "Humph. Still spouting nonsense, you mongrel," Gilgamesh scoffed, his pride undiminished despite his defeat. He sneered, "Do you not hate me, mongrel? I was the one who cast you into this vortex. The thought of letting you live never crossed my mind. I've come this far, and I've encountered no enemies or opponents," Shirou declared. "Only teachers and friends. It was you, Gilgamesh, who taught me courage, wisdom, bravery, and a steadfast heart." "I am not your teacher," Gilgamesh spat out disdainfully. "But aren't you showing me the consequences of abusing power right now?" Shirou countered. Gilgamesh was stunned. His gaze locked onto Shirou's bright eyes. He gritted his teeth and declared, "I am not weak. I will not be shrouded in this veil of shame." "This is not a matter of shame, but of fact," Shirou declared. "I will never forget this war, and what I have learned from it will guide me for the rest of my life. And you too are weak, just like me. There is no such thing as a truly strong person in this world, no matter how much stronger they are compared to others, no matter how brilliant they may seem. No one can be perfect and make no mistakes." "Are you saying that I have made mistakes?" Gilgamesh asked. "Are you suggesting that the fall of Uruk is my fault?" "No," Shirou replied calmly. "I can sense your gentle kindness, but your words are like thorns, and your actions are like a blade. Even if your intentions are good, who would accept kindness that's full of thorns?" You impudent." Gilgamesh reached out with his hand, attempting to grab Shirou's face, but his remaining strength was not enough to make contact. He took hold of Gilgamesh's hands and said, "The Sumerians have not perished, for we are still here. We have evolved from ignorance to wisdom, from barbarism to civilization. This is what it means to live a brief life, to leave our accomplishments to future generations. This is who we are. You should try it too." Try to accept us. Try to open your heart to others. If we meet again, I would like to hear your story." You! Gilgamesh gazed into Shirou's bright eyes before finally closing his own. As the clouds in the sky dispersed, the faint sun shone through and cast a warm light on Gilgamesh's face, now peaceful and serene. "This mongrel—" The hand slipped from Shirou's grip and Gilgamesh vanished, disappearing like snow. The sky cleared and Shirou raised the completed Holy Grail crystal, channeling his magical energy into it. "What is your wish?" a voice asked. "I wish to bring back to life all those who died in this war," Shirou replied firmly. "Are you sure?" The voice seemed to question him. "I can grant any wish you have with the magical energy you've provided." "I am immortal," Shirou stated, "and a mortal's wishes can be achieved with their own hands. But reversing life and death requires your assistance." "Is that so?" The voice was skeptical. "But reversing the flow of life and death is a law, and the magical energy you've given me is not enough." "Take all of my magical energy," Shirou said. "Make this wish come true." "No regret?" Shirou said. "It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to this land. Let's return it to its rightful place." The Grail crystal absorbed Shirou's magical energy, but it did not take everything. After 200 years' worth of reserves were extracted, it was enough to power the reversal of life and death. With a loud ding, the Grail crystal in Shirou's hand blazed with a dazzling light, and then the veil of death was lifted and life returned. Kiri walked along the shattered Fuyuki Bridge, feeling a deep sense of loss. He felt as though he had lost the meaning of life, a feeling that had only grown stronger since he had seen that pair of blazing eyes. He did not understand what was happening to him. Was this not the answer that Gilgamesh had promised him? But what were those eyes? What did they mean? Shink! Kiri was abruptly pulled from his thoughts as he felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. He looked down to see a blade protruding from his stomach, having been stabbed from behind. "Surprised?" a voice called out, filled with anger and hatred. Kiri turned to see Tokiomi, who was glaring at him with a fierce expression. Just as he had orchestrated an ambush on Gilgamesh from behind, now Kiri was experiencing the same fate he had planned for others. Just like Gilgamesh, Kiri felt no pain or hatred towards his attacker. Instead, his mind was filled with images of those eyes. In the face of Tokiomi's angry question, Kiri simply replied, his voice calm and collected, "It's you. So be it." With those words, he fell from the Fuyuki Bridge. As his life slowly slipped away, Kiri's mind began to recall his own life. Generosity, perseverance, honesty, loyalty, diligence, righteousness, patience. Are you awake now? Are you being held back by the strict doctrines of your religion, or being trapped by a group of mongrels that have limited your ability to discover your true self? Are you going to continue struggling in the false prison fabricated by humanity? Or will you go out and see the pitiful chaos for yourself? The clearer the water, the muddier the sand at the bottom. The choice is yours. But I think your patience is also nearing its limit. Ugly expression for a mongrel, those pair of eyes. So that's it. That's how it is. Tears streamed down his face as Kiri let out a hysteria-filled shout. "Merciful king, cruel king, if you know the answer, why not just tell me? Why do you make me find it on my own? Why must I confront such an ugly state? Ah!" And with that, Kiri fell into the sea. As a man emerged from the river, he spotted a discarded piece of snake skin on the riverbank. He chuckled to himself before donning his attire and embarking on his journey back to Uruk. "Don't you dare die, mongrel. Otherwise, those eyes will become the king's treasure." The Grail crystal's immense magical power was in full effect, causing the boundary between life and death to reverse. The sky, shrouded in a thick veil of black mist, was penetrated by the faint sunlight, casting a faint golden hue on the desolate earth below. Having spent 200 years' worth of magical energy in one go, Shirou's magical energy was still growing, though not as impressively as before. Where his magical energy once felt like an endless ocean, now it was reduced to a small stream. Even the trail of black mud that had once followed him had significantly shrunk in size. Despite the reduction of his magical energy, he felt no regret and did not yearn for it. He knew that the magical energy he had wielded was a gift from the land, and returning it was only right. Furthermore, he still had the mud and the innate skill known as the evil flower, which enabled him to absorb human evil and slowly accumulate magical energy once again. And now, it's time to clean up. Standing atop a hill, Shirou gazed down at the spreading flames in the Miyama district with a worried smile on his face. He knew that it was the job of the Mages Association and the Holy Church to handle such matters, but with their inflexible thinking, they would likely blame it on a gas leak or explosion. However, the situation had grown too dire to be swept under the rug. Amid the chaos and destruction, many have perished and been brought back to life. They are lost, desperate, and buried under layers of emotional turmoil. Let him pave a path toward freedom for them. Shirou returned to his home in Shinto and retrieved the Ultraman jacket from its hiding place under his bed. As his body was now merged with black mud, making him appear older and more mature, the jacket fits him perfectly. No longer did he have to rely on elevator shoes to increase his height. Initially, he had simply intended to use the jacket to conceal his true appearance. However, it had now become a crucial lifeline for him. With the jacket securely in place, he went in search of Waver and requested a favor from him. "Are you certain about this?" Waver questioned with a hint of skepticism in his voice. Shirou gave a firm nod and replied, "Yes." Waver rubbed the back of his head, looking flustered. "You really want to do it even after everything that's happened?" Shirou merely nodded, his expression softening into a smile. "It'll be easier for you if you bring Kaneth along as well." Waver arched an eyebrow in surprise. "Didn't you say you never wanted to see Kaneth again?" "Kaneth was the one who hunted me down during the war, and I will harbor a grudge against him for the rest of my life," Shirou explained. "But right now, I need his strength." Waver gazed at Shirou with a look of confusion. "How can you ask for help from someone you loathe with a smile on your face?" Shirou's eyes softened, and he answered, "I have to put on a smile now. It helps put others at ease. He will become the unparalleled hero of this era." As Waver gazed into Shirou's bright eyes, he couldn't help but recall the words of Iskandar. The memory brought a sour feeling to his nose. "I understand, and I'll do what I can to assist you." Shirou donned his leather jacket and flashed a confident smile. "Don't worry. I've had experience on stage before, even if it was only for 7 days." The sun broke through the dense black fog, casting a weak light upon the scorched earth. Flames licked at everything in sight, and the ground was charred to a deep, sooty black. The surviving individuals gazed upon the hero who had single-handedly rescued 139 people from the rubble. He cradled some of them in his arms, while 8 powerful, glowing arms extended from his back, each one bearing the weight of those he had saved from the tragedy. Oh my goodness! He really rescued 139 people all by himself. What are those glowing arms coming out of his back? Who could he be? Could he be a god? Shirou infused magical energy into the black mud, causing it to burst into a dazzling light that concealed its true malevolent nature. He stood atop the ruins, dressed in a leather suit of Ultraman 7, allowing all to see his glory. He let out a hearty laugh. "Ha ha 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 ha! People, there's no need to fear anymore. I'm here. I've come from Nebula M78. The monsters that once tormented you have been defeated by my hand. You're safe now." The scene was quiet for a moment, and people looked at Shirou as if they were watching a one-man show. Waver let out a sigh. The last thing he wanted to do was this. Nevertheless, he mustered up the courage and raised his hand, shouting out, "Ultraman!" People who were prompted by him also began to shout loudly, "Ultraman!" Kenneth snorted in annoyance. He couldn't believe he was even involved in such a foolish idea. Despite his frustration, he raised his hand and called out, "Ultra 7! He's come all the way from the land of light to save us!" Encouraged by Kenneth's prompt, the crowd erupted into a chorus of cheers. "The land of light is real! The monsters are gone, banished by 7! 7! 7!" The once defeated and despairing crowd, aimlessly wandering like lost sheep, now found a leader in Kenneth and Waver. They gazed at Shirou, whose light seemed to have no end, and cried out in unison, "7! 7!" The name Ultra 7 was not just a simple noun. Though many may not have known of it beforehand, at that moment the name symbolized hope, a better future, and safety, inciting them to shout it with fervor. "Ah, beloved humans of the kingdom of light, your light shines so brightly even from the other side of the galaxy. That is why we, from the land of light, vow to protect you with all our strength." Shirou spoke. "As Ultramen we may be powerful, but we are not gods. There are lives that cannot be saved, and goals that cannot be achieved, no matter how hard we try. But do not despair. Raise your hands and stand tall. The future of humanity must be shaped by human hands. Go forth and save your fellow man. The other side of the light lies within yourselves. I will remain here, using my light to illuminate the way ahead. Now go and save the people. Save the people! Save the people!" The people who had suffered through disasters, those who were filled with desperation and sadness, cried out in despair. But as they gazed upon the never-ending light, they found encouragement and motivation, a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness that had once ensnared them. In this world, there truly was light. Those with minor injuries began to follow the light, determined to save others, put out the fires, and lift themselves out of their desperate state. The light sparked hope within them, leading them toward a brighter future. A single matchstick, with its small flame, can easily be snuffed out by a gust of wind. But it has the power to ignite others, sparking fires that are 10, 100, 1,000, even 1,000,000 times greater than its own. Just like that small spark can bring light to the darkness, one person's actions can inspire and lead to positive change for many others. Never forget this burning passion, for it is what has made you the chosen one of the light. With these words, Shirou rose into the dark sky, his body ablaze with magical energy. He transformed into the brightest star in the heavens, shining down on the world below as a symbol of hope and strength. The sky was bathed in darkness, but in the midst of it all shone a star brighter than the sun. This was the embodiment of the people's burning passion and unrelenting spirit. Their fervent hearts shone through even in the darkest of nights. Kiritsugu wandered aimlessly through the sea of fire, his eyes dull, his body numb, and his soul feeling empty. He moved like a walking corpse, a shell of his former self, consumed by the destruction and chaos that surrounded him. He had been betrayed by his own sense of justice, his faith in what he believed in most, and in many ways he felt as if he had died long ago. Yet he still lived on in this numb existence, wandering aimlessly through a world that no longer made sense to him. He stumbled over a rock and fell to the ground with a thud. The flames were closing in, but he was indifferent to the danger. His eyes were empty, devoid of life or emotion. It was as if his soul had already perished, leaving him in a state of constant emptiness. But at that moment, a hand appeared in front of him. Kiritsugu lifted his head slightly and saw a figure bathed in light. It was a boy he had once attempted to assassinate. "Do you need help?" the boy asked. "Are you here to save me?" Kiritsugu asked. "That's right," the boy replied with a smile. "When I heard that you needed help, I rushed here as fast as I could. And just take a look around you." He gestured towards the people in the vicinity. "Not just me, but everyone here is banding together to offer their support and assistance." Kiritsugu's gaze swept across the scene before him, taking in the sight of individuals coming together in a show of solidarity, casting aside their fears and uncertainties, and lending each other comfort and support. A sudden pang of emotion hit him, and tears streamed down his face. He clutched Shirou's hand tightly and wept like a child, his tears flowing freely. In that moment, Kiritsugu finally found his long-sought-after hero of justice, and he began to comprehend the true nature of justice itself. He realized that in this world, the so-called hero of justice was not a tangible person, but a spirit, an idea, an ideal that people could strive towards. It was this ideal of justice that had inspired the people around him to band together, to offer their aid and support in times of need, and to stand united against the forces of despair. This so-called hero of justice was not a person, but a spirit. It was a spirit. Kiritsugu couldn't believe his own foolishness. How could it have taken him this long to understand this fundamental truth? A principle that even a 6-year-old child could grasp. Yet it had taken Kiritsugu nearly 30 years to truly comprehend it. "Ah!" Kiritsugu wailed. As he watched Kiritsugu's fists clenched tightly in his distress, Shirou offered a comforting smile. "Cry as much as you need to. I'll be here to listen to everything you have to say until you feel better." Dark and fragrant flowers of evil bloomed around them. October 12, 1993, 11:32 a.m. Emiya Kiritsugu had finally encountered his true hero of justice.